Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Testing 1 2. We're live from the studio, from the Move Well podcast studio. And as you can tell by the title of this one, I'm excited for this. And it's gonna be a good episode. And it's been a week,
A week and a day today,
a week
baby.
and a day today
Yep.
since Mr. Wade Weatherholt right here completed Ironman Louisville 70.3. So super excited to be able to do like race recaps are my favorite. That's my favorite thing to talk to people about because everybody's experience is so unique on race day. And especially this is my first time I've ever been to an Ironman event, any triathlon event. So seeing all of the different components that go into this race is just wild. And you think about like endurance events in general and how hard they are anyway and how like straining they are mentally and physically. And so to see three different events, swim, bike, and run, combined together and the transition from each, like I just imagine how much more difficult it is logistically, physically, and mentally. So there's just so much more that goes into it. So last Sunday, August 18th, Wade did Ironman Louisville 70.3. So give like a little intro to what that is. And first I'll say we did a lead up called Road to Ironman, a YouTube series. And so I think I've created 11 videos, and then I'm currently working on the last video, which is the race day vlog. So that'll probably be the longest one by far because I got so much footage, and we did a lot of verbalizing things out loud, like how you feeling, what's your strategy here, things like that. So I'm excited to really dedicate some time and work on that. And we appreciate everybody that has supported. And just while I'm thinking of these things, it was so cool after the race, and then I'll have Wade chime in. But after the race, Wade had said he had a couple people out on the Ironman course that had recognized him, like, "Hey, I watched some of your videos for the Road to Ironman series," which is incredible. Like that is so cool. And then after the race, somebody texted me who did the Ironman, and he told me, "Hey, hope your Move Well guy did good. I kept up with the series the whole time." So it was just really special to like work on something and be intentional with it. From Wade's in having to create these videos because he's not in the office every day with me, and send those to me, and then to put it together and create it and put it out on a weekly basis was challenging at times. Both of us having families and working, and this is still considered work. So being able to do that and have people support and see that people are watching it was really, really cool. So I wanted to preface with that. But let's dive into race day. So first, just talk about what Ironman 70.3 is, what it entails, and then we'll go into race day, like how it started when you woke up and how it went from there.
Sounds good, man. I'm excited to dive into it too, and to see. I mean, I think we started around like week 15, documenting my journey to it. So it'll be exciting to see it all finally come full circle with that final video and show everybody what race day went like for me. But Ironman event is a swim, bike, and run, so it's a multi-sport event. And for the 70.3 distance, it's a 1.2 mile swim, 56-mile bike, then followed by a half marathon, so 13.1 miles. In this one, the distances were pretty dead on, honestly. The bike was a little long, just by my watch on my Garmin with what it said, but overall it was pretty dead on to the entire distance that we had. So specific to that event, it was up in Louisville, is where I performed the Ironman. So it was a 1.2 mile swim downriver in the Ohio River. There was a lot of questions if we were going to even be able to do the swim due to algae bloom, but it got a little cold the week before leading up, so it kind of
rained.
It rained maybe the night before, so it helped clear all that out, because that would really stink if you had trained that long and then the part of the swim gets canceled, which has happened in Louisville before. So it was nice to be able to do the full event. And then the 56-mile bike, we went out from Louisville all the way out to LaGrange, Kentucky, and back. So just a lot of pretty rolling hills, pretty country back in there. And then the half marathon route was a pretty nice route. I enjoyed it. Basically from downtown Louisville, you run out through Cherokee Park, which is a beautiful park. Louisville's park systems in general are just awesome. So a lot of good rolling hills on the run as well. And then you finish back in 4th Street Live in downtown Louisville.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. Again, somebody who's never even been to a triathlon event, especially an Ironman, it just like the logistics are just crazy. So I think they did a good job of utilizing the town and like having some out and back, and the bike was a direct out and back, or no, the bike, it was like out,
You
almost
go
like
out and you do like
almost like a dipper, like it
basically like
looked
a
like a big,
square out and then back. Yeah.
yes, almost like a big dipper. So it was really cool the way they utilize it, because it's so much work.
Mhm.
And but yeah, I think from we got there Saturday, and Wade went and checked in, went to Ironman Village, and kind of I walked around there, experienced that a little bit, and then we went back to Wade's sister-in-law's, and we kind of talked about race strategy, and then just planning out our logistics and kind of
Yep.
how it was going to be. And I will say, it was way more congested than I expected it to be at the swim start. I mean,
Yeah.
I felt like you all, well, one, it looks like a big space down there, like on the waterfront, but then they have you all in these corrals, and it's basically time. So if you're 27 minutes and under, which are usually the elites, they're obviously up front.
I
and
wasn't there.
Yeah, Wade, they didn't have anything fast enough for Wade,
Yeah.
so you're up front, and then from there it's like 30 to 33 minutes, 33 to 36, etc. And it's like all the way to hour plus, multiple corrals. I mean, they are completely just jam packed in there, like a can of sardines. It was insane. And I had somebody, Brandon Neal, shout out to Brandon. He did Ironman Louisville as well. As he came through in like one or two corrals before you, and he was like, Wade's right behind me. I just saw him, and I asked him the other day, he's done 11 Ironmans, and 10 of the 11 have been 70.3 distances. And he said that was by far the most congested swim corrals
Well,
he's ever been in, which I thought was a big deal. So yeah, so Wade and I, we meet up around, the race start was at 7
a.m.
7
Louisville.
Eastern,
Yeah.
7
Mhm.
Eastern time. So I get down there a little early, just because I'm not sure logistically how it's going to look, where I'm going to be able to get access to. And so I get down there about 6:20, 6:15, and I'm freaking out, like, am I in the right spot? So I'm like texting Janae. I'm like, is Wade down here? Are you with them? And she didn't see it till right before race start. I was like, I'm sorry. And so I figured it out. Wade showed up, and about probably like 6:50, 6:55, you came down there. But what I did not realize was the race started at 7, but I mean, they only
You
send
stand
off,
around.
what,
It's like
3 athletes at a time? Explain that.
Yeah, so it's a rolling start. So I think it was every 5 seconds, 4 people get in
Okay.
the water. So as you're coming up to go down the ramp to get in the water, I mean, they have someone there directing you. All right, go to lane 2, lane 3, lane 4, and they just keep it rolling. And then basically it's 4 loud beeps, and on the 5th one, you take off in the water. Which honestly, once you got down there, it went pretty smooth. And once we started moving, it kept moving, but it just took a while to kind of, like Logan said, fend off the congestion at the beginning of the race. But it's not fun starting out stuff like that, especially for me, man. You just sit there and you just think about everything else that's going on and what is lying ahead of you. But I stayed pretty calm this time. I kept my heart rate down pretty low, just try not to get in my head too much about it. But it's just a long time to sit there and wait. I mean, I don't think I got in the water till it's probably like 7:45, 7:40ish.
It was 7:43 when you got in.
7:43, yeah. So I mean, it was 43 minutes from when the first people went off, I think at 6:57. The athletes, like the sponsored athletes, paid athletes, went off. And then, so, I mean, that's a lot of time just sitting there waiting for the race to start, right? So you bring some food down and some water down that you got to have, basically just to bridge that gap from your nutrition too. But yeah, it was a congested start for sure.
Well, I know I mean, anytime you do endurance events, I mean, most people know and they practice that you want to eat every 45 minutes to an hour. So race starts at 7, you've already fueled for the morning.
Yeah.
And then, so while you're down there, you have to have other nutrition, because everything that you ate at 6:30 or 6:15 that morning likely is going to be burned out of your system by the time you take off at 7:45, an hour and a half later. So, but yeah, walk like a little bit more in depth. Like, how are you feeling when you got down there? Did you take food down there to the start with you? Like, kind of walk through what you were feeling from the moment you lined up, and like sight, sounds, nerves, and then after that, just go right into the swim start. Like how the swim went, what it looked like.
Yeah, well, I just think that morning I woke up around like 4:30 Louisville time. Yeah, because the transition opened up at 5 to 5:30, I believe. So I think we got it opened at 5. It was open 5 to 6:30, and we got down there around 5:30. And so woke up that night, or that morning, I guess. It was still basically felt like night to me, especially being an hour behind where I typically live. So it was 3:30 my time that I woke up. And I looked down at my Garmin watch, look at my sleep recovery and how my body felt. I got 2.5 hours of sleep that night. So just toss and turn all night. And I hadn't been feeling good that whole week leading up to it. I think that Wednesday I started getting either sinus infection, tested for COVID. It wasn't, hopefully it wasn't COVID, but
Yeah.
just overall just wasn't feeling good at all. And it just continued to spiral into race day. So whenever I woke up that morning, you'll see it on the YouTube series whenever it comes out. So you got to watch it to see this footage.
Yeah.
I don't think I really had much of a voice, and I just felt drained just even getting to just waking up that morning.
Yeah.
But luckily, my wife was able to drive me to the race start. And then obviously, as the day goes on, you start to feel a little bit better once you get there and you got the adrenaline running in. So wake up, get to the transition area. So at the transition area, you're setting up everything from coming in from the swim to the bike and then going from the bike to the run. So you're wanting to get your bike shoes set up, your nutrition set up for on your bike, that you want everything ready. Because the only thing you can check in the day before is your bike. So you bring helmet, sunglasses, basically just have everything set up for whenever you come to the transition. Everything's quick to find, quick to change, and you can just get in and get out, because you can waste a lot of time at the transition. So I got everything set up pretty well at that transition, felt good. And that's actually where the first guy commented on me. He was right in the rack next to me. He was like, "Hey, are you the Move Well guy?"
That's
And
so
I was
cool.
like, "I don't know. Which one are you talking about?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, no, that was me going through the series." And he wished me luck and stuff. He was actually from Bowling Green. Can't remember his name. I wish I could. Maybe he'll watch this or comment on one of the YouTube series.
Was it Josh?
I can't remember.
Okay.
It may have been Josh.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. But got everything ready at the transition, and then they take you in buses over to the swim start. So it's a 1.2 mile basically from where we were, and then they bus you up to where you start. So they have school buses basically running around the clock for you to be able to go ahead and get to the swim start. So they have the athletes running every 2-3 minutes, buses coming in and taking people out. So it's just neat just being around all the people. Not only that, whenever I was getting on the bus, I had someone comment on my Hot Rod Ultra shirt saying, "Man, that's a great ultra marathon. Love that event." So I was too locked in that I didn't even think to ask the person who they were. Have you run it? How are you going to be there this year? I wish I would have done that. But once you get to the swim start, I mean, it's just, to me, it seems like sheer pandemonium, because you've got just people walking around everywhere. You've got seasoned people that I'm sure are just calm, cool, and collected and ready for this. And you got people from their first times.
And spectators
starting this. Yeah. And a lot of people just down there spectating. So it was just a lot of people just in general ready for that. But once you get up, I mean, the lines for the porta potties are crazy. Everybody emptying their bladder one last time before they get down to the river. But then right around like 6:50, they have somebody there playing My Old Kentucky Home, similar to what they do at the beginning of the Kentucky Derby. So that was neat. Just being able to listen to that and the sights and the sounds, just trying to take it all in. I mean, the sun was barely rising there, so it was just right at dawn. Really pretty. And then you had basically the helicopters flying around the whole time from all the different news channels, basically filming our start off. So that was pretty neat. And then once you get down to the start line, some people are chatty, want to talk to you, talk race strategy, and some people are just locked in, just don't really want to talk. I'm kind of a mix between the two. I don't really like engaging in that kind of talk once you're ready at that event. Beforehand, I'll talk to you, but once you're there, you're just not. I'm personally not ready to just sit around and chit chat. But then the first gun goes off, and then obviously you get butterflies, and and then like I said, you've got 45 minutes to wait before you even get in the water. So you're just sitting there waiting, sitting there with your thoughts, hoping everything come race day is good. For me, I was just happy to get there because I just didn't feel good leading up to the race. And I was just excited to go ahead. And I know I had put in the work. I had followed my program to, I would say, about 80 to 85% consistency. Like, I felt pretty good with it overall. And I was just excited, even if I wasn't feeling good, just to see what the heck I could do with it at that point. So.
Yeah. And then once you got in the swim, it's funny, you kind of, you didn't really predict this, but you found the issue the night before the race about your goggles. So talk about the swim, I mean, it was pretty early on when you kind of first realized this is going to be a little bit longer than I expected it to be. So talk through the swim.
Swim. One of the reasons I decided to do Louisville, I had done one other Ironman 70.3, and it was in Chattanooga, and it was a downriver swim, and that's in late May. So the water's still not very warm from the summer months. So it was still wetsuit legal. So one reason I decided to do Louisville is because I'm not a very strong swimmer or cyclist or runner, but I'm definitely not a strong swim out of all those three. It's a downriver swim. So generally you have a current that helps you. But that morning the current was 0.008 miles per hour. So basically it was like swimming in a lake. So you didn't really have any assistance from the current at all. But what Logan was alluding to was the day before we kind of went through all of my gear, basically just kind of check in and show y'all, hey, this is what I'm running in. This is what I'm cycling in. These are my goggles, swim cap, all that stuff to check in. And I'd been having some issues with my goggles leaking like my last 3 swims. But whenever I threw on my swim cap and I had them on, it suctioned really well. And I hadn't had any issues with my goggles in those 3 swims. So I was like, all right, just got to make sure I have my swim cap on, get a good seal before I jump in the water, and I should be good to go. So it's me. I think they put me in lane 2, countdown, 3 people in front of you. You know, it goes quick. And then before I know it, my alarm goes off and I get to jump in the water. As soon as my face hits the water, my goggles, or at least my right side goggle, filled with water in its entirety. So I was like, man, this is awful. Didn't plan for it. So then I swim a little bit, turn over on my back, dump the water out, try to get it to seal, go back, try to get into a normal swimming rhythm, and can't get into much of a rhythm at that point because it kept filling up with water every single stroke I took, basically in the freestyle stroke. And and I'm a right-sided breather too. So every time I would turn and breathe, the water was just sitting right in my eye the entire time. So that was definitely not an ideal way to start. So I would say I'm probably 100, 200 yards in. I swim over to somebody on a paddle board, hold on to the paddle board, try to dump out the water a little bit more, suction it to my face, thinking hopefully this time it has taken. I'll be able to get into normal rhythm, control my heart rate a little bit. Because at that point, I mean, I wouldn't say I was panicking, but I definitely wasn't feeling good at that point. So get back into it, get into a rhythm of swimming, and it starts to fill up again. So about another 100, 200 yards in, hold on to another kayak, and then dump the water out, try to get it to seal at that point. And it took a little bit better that time. So and at that point, I was able to not do my normal swim stroke. I was able to do like a modified freestyle where I wasn't putting my head as much in the water to fill up my goggle every single time on that side. But I was able to get into enough of a rhythm where I'm like, okay, I can finish this. I don't know how good it's going to be. Yeah. And that's the point I was at that point. And was just able to get into it. But it was about, I think we went underneath 3 bridges across the course of the swim. And it was about the second bridge. I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was just getting passed by a ton of people. The water got really rough all of a sudden, but the wind started to pick up a lot. So the waters just got really choppy. Probably wasn't moving very fast at that point anyways, because my swim stroke was terrible at that point. But it just felt like you were at a standstill and the waters just got really choppy. But once you finally broke through that a little bit, they have different color buoys set up. So they're yellow for the first half, orange for the second half. So you know you've hit like the halfway point. And then the last one is red to know where to turn to swim to the finish. So once you start to see those oranges, you're like, all right, well, I've done this much already. I know I can push through and finish another half like that. And then whenever you see the red one, it's just like, man, I'm just glad to see land at this point for me at that point. So I was able to make that turn and swim in. And at that point, I was doing a little bit of a breaststroke followed by a freestyle. And apparently the lady next to me was doing the same. I don't know if I told you this, but we're both doing breaststroke. And when you're doing a breaststroke, you do like a frog kick, right? It's not like a freestyle where you're just kicking by your hips and your knees. And this lady kicked me 3 times right in the chest. Ooh. And I looked at her on the third one. I know she wasn't doing it intentionally, but I was like, I don't want to say what I said, but I was like, what is going on here? And she's like, I'm so sorry. I was like, no, I get it. Like, I'm struggling too. But I just thought it was funny. I got kicked 3 times. And my family was watching my tracker, and they were like, it looked like you stalled out there for a few minutes. My mom thought I had drowned. My sister was starting to panic. Janae was like, nah, he'll be fine. There's no worry about him. But I'm pretty sure that's whenever I got kicked, and I was just sitting there just standing still. I was like, is this actually happening? Yeah. Like, it just seemed like one thing led to the next. And by the time I got close to the end to get out of the water, man, I was just happy to get out of the water at that point. And it was, so as soon as you get out, like on the Garmin, you hit a button and it kind of starts your transition at that point. So you can like see your time, and it gives you real life feedback there. Stop my timer. And I was projecting hopefully to finish between 38 and 40 minutes based off what my swims had been leading up to that point, plus swimming downstream and where I was feeling good with my fitness at that point. 38 to 40 minutes is where I was hoping to finish to hit my goal time of 6 hours. And I got out of the water and it was an hour and 2 minutes. And I was just like, mentally, that's just drains you mentally right there from the get go. And I think I saw you there and I was like, man, that was miserable. Like that was terrible. Like it was a terrible way to start out whenever you're trying to achieve a goal at that point. But I was just happy to get out of the water, given that the way my goggles felt or filled up the entire time, how I felt that morning, just getting in the water. Just glad I was able to breathe well the entire time. Like I didn't have like any coughing issues, got congested a few times, but I was able to do that. Overall, I was just glad to get out of the water at that point and just be able to go on to the bike portion of it. But another thing was too, is that it was wetsuit optional. So the water was hot enough or cold enough where you could wear a wetsuit, but it was too hot to where like you couldn't get age group awards, which there's no way in heck I was ever going to qualify for those anyways. But everybody, there's maybe like a handful to like probably like 50 to 100 people that wore wetsuits. And I probably let that sway my decision getting into the water, like just knowing how I was feeling, other race issues, or like just how I was feeling that day of. I probably should have went ahead and wore the wetsuit. And then knowing like the other issues I had come on, like I would have been able to combat them a little bit easier. But I didn't wear the wetsuit, slowed me down a little bit, I'm sure. But that was another compounding factor. Like once I got in and that started happening, I was like, really wish I would have had my wetsuit on at this point. But, at that point, you just roll with the punches and you just problem solve to figure out what you can do just to keep moving to that point.
Yeah, because if you wore your wetsuit, you had to wait until everybody else went to get in the water. And so if you didn't wear a wetsuit, you got to take off in your normal corral. But if you chose to wear it, you had to wait for everybody else to go. And I'm assuming, is that because typically you're gonna move faster in the wetsuit to space people out?
I think moving faster, and then also they had to log who those people were, so that way they couldn't qualify for like age group awards.
Right.
So basically, they were going to take down every number that they had and just make sure that they weren't able to qualify for awards. Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah. So I remember whenever I was, you had told me that morning, because you were looking at the water the day before and the morning of, and I remember you had kind of told me that 38 to 43 range. In the morning of, you're like, I'm going to go in the 43 to 46 corral because I'm not sure how quick I'm going to move. And then I saw you once in the water, and it was like the first 5 minutes in, I was like proud I even saw you out there. I was like, I cannot believe I even saw him.
Well, you could probably see me because I looked like a fish out of water, I'm sure.
Everybody did.
I looked awful, I'm sure. Yeah.
Everybody did. But everybody blends in, and a lot of people had on black tri-suits, and everybody had on green caps, except for a couple people, had different ones.
Some people had on pink. I don't know if it was females or like the Ironman Foundation had different caps.
Yeah, theirs were gold.
But everybody was a little bit different in their caps.
Yeah. So on the way down, I didn't know exactly who you were, but I was tracking you. And then I get there and I'm tracking weight on my phone along with some other athletes. So I was like, well, I'm going to go ahead and get down to the transition area so I can see some other people, like Brandon and Josh and a couple other people. So I got notifications that Brandon came out of the water, which he took off a little before you all did. And so I got some pictures of him. But then when I'm standing up there, it was about 50 minutes where I was like, okay, he is probably coming in soon. And I was like, I'm going to give like 5 to 8 more minutes. And at that point, I know something's probably happened. But I do remember standing up there and somebody was standing beside me at the transition area, because they come out of the water and they make like a hard left to go towards the bike transition area. And somebody was standing there and she said that I've heard a lot of the athletes saying the water is really, really choppy. So a lot of them have been going about 6 to 8 minutes slower than what they expected, or up to like 10 minutes slower. And I was like, oh, at that point I was like, okay, well, I'm not even going to worry. I'm not going to worry then, and I'm like, there are so many rescue kayaks and paddle boards out there. Like if somebody truly needs it, they're going to get it. And it was funny. I don't want to get too far ahead, but when you first took off on the bike, I walked back to my vehicle to charge my phone up and do that stuff. And I saw a guy walking in his tri-suit with a swim cap on out of the water. So he must have DNF'd at some point in the water. And so he was kind of on that trek back to Ironman Village or to the transition area. I'm like, man, that really stinks to not even be able to get through the first part, get to the first transition. But yeah, finally I'm sitting there and there's about a minute buffer of when I get the notification on my phone. And it was like spot on. The moment you made it past the transition area or got out of the water, moved onto the bike, it was instant to your phone if you're tracking an athlete. So I knew based on the people that came before you, I had about a minute buffer before I would see you once I got the notification. So when I saw Wade Weatherholt completed the swim, I was like, all right, I know he's coming up here now. And he came out the transition area, ran past me, and I was, yelling just so it made sure that he could see me. And I was recording him, man, taking pictures. He leaned in the camera. He was like, that sucked. And I was like, uh-oh. I was like, well, I'll catch him later. So he goes through transition. I mean, obviously you can't cut through the transition area. So I'm like sprinting and I like shove all my camera. I have my GoPro, 2 cameras, and just a ton of my laptop, my flash, everything in my bag. And so I have it on my bag and my backpack, and I'm like pulling the straps on. I'm like running, and everything's like doom, doom, doom. I'm like sprinting across the backside of the transition to catch Wade before he got on the bike. So how long you have to run with the bike? Kind of talk about how the transition was to the bike, because you had to stay dismounted from your bike for a bit, right?
Yeah. So basically the way it works is you get out of the water. We had to run up like a little bit of an incline, like Logan said. It's maybe 10th to probably 0.15 miles to get into the transition area. And then from there, you got to remember, hey, where was my bike at? What rack was it on? And where do I go to? So then you got to run over to where your bike was, get all your gear, your helmet, put all that on, your bike shoes. And then from there, they have another area designated to where you run out, where it's like your bike out area. So you got to run out there, and then there's a specific mounting area. So there's only a certain area where they allow you to mount your bike. So that was probably another 0.2 of a mile to run from the transition to get to that point out on the main road to where you're actually able to mount your bike. Just because, I mean, they don't want everybody congested trying to do that at the very beginning, so it kind of gives you some time to space out on that. But yeah, it was, I think the day before, because I was asking people, because it's always nice to walk the day before whenever I was setting up my bike and all that stuff, like where are we coming in at? Where will I run to? Just kind of walk through the steps of knowing like where your bike's going to be whenever you come in from the run. Where's your bike going to end? Where you're going to start your run? Just so you can kind of walk through your steps of the transition area to be familiar. Because once you get out of the water, you're a little disoriented a little bit. So you're trying to remember, and muscle memory takes over there. And so I already had a good little familiarity with it, but it was a good little distance that you had to hike and walk a little bit from those transition areas.
Yeah. And so, I caught Wade. I mean, that transition was quick, because you think about, probably a minute and a half of the transition is running from the water where you get out to get to your bike.
Yeah.
And I got the notification, your transition, I think, was like 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, it was a quicker transition for me.
Yeah. And even me seeing, you came out, there was a couple other guys I was tracking, and one of them came out in like 8.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, he's probably just taking his time. I know it was his first triathlon. And, but I'm like, all things considered, you got out really fast. So, I'm glad I even caught you coming out, because I ran up to where you guys bike out, and I caught you the last second and was getting some content of him. So, got some pictures and stuff of Wade, and I told him good transition. And then I got out by the road right where they get to mount their bike. And then he sent off, and we kind of decided we were deciding whether to send the GoPro with him. But then it's like, once I'm seeing everything, like the day of the race, I'm like, I'm so glad we didn't even try that, because one, it probably would have got dropped at some point. And two, it's like, you don't want to worry about that stuff, So I knew that I wasn't going to get really any content of Wade on the bike, because he was, in the beginning especially, he was averaging 18, 19 miles per hour. I'm like, you can't get your vehicle on the course. And if I were to get my vehicle out there, getting back would have been a nightmare. And I was like, I know I want to get a Lime scooter, but I want to save that for the run. And plus, it's not going to keep up with the bike anyway. Yeah. So after that,
the way back, it may have.
The way back, maybe. Yeah. Slowed down a little bit. But yeah, so I just tracked Wade, and they give you notifications on the bike and the run. On the bike, it's like every 3 to 8 miles, maybe.
Really?
Yeah, something like that. And then the run was even more often. So I really had a pulse of where Wade was at the whole time. So I had it was like 3 hours and 10 minutes you were on the bike, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that. So, which was pretty much spot on where you said. Mm-hmm. So I went and grabbed some coffee, grabbed some breakfast, and charged up my gear, and then set in the AC for a little bit. So waited on Wade to come back through. So again, I didn't know how he was feeling on the bike. I could just guess based off of his times coming through. I knew there were some rolling hills. And so I was like, just keeping a pulse on his time, and I was like, he's pretty well on track, and so I think he's feeling good enough, especially. So go through the bike, because we didn't really get to talk about that much, and I just want to hear how you felt. Was there a certain point that it changed for you? and nutrition stuff. Talk about nutrition, because I know that was a struggle in some areas too, and it
Yeah.
always is when you do endurance stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, the bike overall, I was just excited to get on the bike because that's at the point of the race. Like, I'm going to finish.
Mhm.
Will I hit my time? Who knows? But I know I will finish the race. So I was just excited to get on the bike. And it's, you're going to have 2.5 to 3.5 hours potentially of how long you're going to be on there, just you and your thoughts, and just get down and go with it. But felt really good for the first like 30 miles. Then after that, quad started cramping. And I just started feeling pretty worn out. But I don't know if that was due to not being able to take down nutrition, like Logan was mentioning. Like every 30 to probably every 45 minutes to an hour, I was planning on taking an energy gel. I think I took 2 of those on the entire bike, and I was out there for 3 hours, 3 hours, 20 minutes. So way undershot that, just because I just didn't feel like eating anything like that at that point. Like I was pretty stuffed already in my stomach. I just retain a lot of fluid, I feel like, in my stomach, and I just don't feel like taking any more in, which I probably should have. But I also had some like carbohydrate mix in my water, so I was still getting calories in, just probably not enough. But the first 10 miles were flat and the wind was to your back, so it felt really good on the way going out. So you're probably getting a false sense of, all right, I'm scooting pretty good. Then you hit a big climb right out of like going into Oldham County, which some people struggled with. But I mean, honestly, around here in Bowling Green and where I was training back home in Brett County, those hills were pretty dead spot on to what I was tackling there. It was just more of them across the course of the 56 miles. But overall, I felt pretty good on the bike. I could just tell my body was just fatigued and just honestly felt shot by the time I got off the bike. Like the last probably 10 miles, and basically it was an out and back there for the last 10 miles. So it was flat coming back, but you just had a headwind the entire time. So like mentally, you felt like you should be able to push it pretty hard, which I was trying to push it pretty hard, but you were still going even slower than you were on the way out. So it was just mentally and physically just draining at that point. But overall on the actual course, didn't have really any mishaps. Basically, the way they have like the nutrition set up on the course is every 15 miles, they have amazing groups of volunteers and individuals that have like Martin gels, Martin bars that you can eat, which is just a brand of energy supplements, I guess you can take out on the race. And then they had water and Mortal Hydration out on the course. So basically water bottles that you could take and keep with you on the bike. So every 15 miles, you had the chance to get some more of that. And then I took water the first time and a Mortal Hydration the last 2, which they only give you, it's maybe like 100 yards to take it if you need to like throw it off. So basically throw it to a trash can where they can pick it up, because they don't want you littering out on the course the entire time. So I would try to chug as much as I could real quick to offload the rest of the water bottle. So I was maybe getting 8 to 10 ounces whenever I was taking those in, because it went by really fast.
I bet. Yeah.
The last triathlon I did, it was maybe like a quarter mile. It felt like, to be able to discard of some of that stuff. Whereas this one, it was very short.
Yeah,
like it wasn't
really
near as long for you to be able to get.
And when you're moving at like 15 to 20 miles per hour, it
goes by quick. Yeah. But overall, I mean, on the bike course, there was nothing crazy except the last little bit. I don't know if I had a slow tire leak. So I had to stop and hop off real quick, but I had like a CO2 cartridge and I was able to air it up enough really quick.
Oh, I didn't know
just
that.
to hop back on real fast. So that dinged me a little bit. And it was just like another one of those things, like something just went wrong where I wasn't expecting it to go right, or I was expecting it to go right that whole race day, but wasn't like a full flat, like where I had to change my tube or anything. So I just pumped a little extra air in it and it got me to the finish line, because it was only 10 miles left at that point. But yeah, it was just, overall, it was a good bike route. Enjoyed it. There was a lot of people out there spectating, cheering you on. Not too many people yelling at you, telling you to get off the road. Like Chattanooga, it was pretty rough. Like they didn't have much of the road blocked off or closed down, whereas this one, they at least had one lane dedicated to us the entire time, which was nice. Which that's something I'll say just for the entire Ironman in Louisville, like the volunteers and the police presence there for the entire race was awesome.
Made you feel safe.
Made you feel safe. Traffic was well controlled. I think there was one person that did have an accident involving a car that I had heard of later. But other than that, honestly, for me, it seemed like it went pretty smooth, and you didn't feel unsafe out on the road. Because I mean, it's a Sunday morning; people are trying to go to church. It was pretty packed up the first like 10 to 15 miles, and it kind of spread out. But some of the churches that were on the route, I had seen where they had posted where, hey, they were having Saturday night service, we're postponing Sunday just because of the amount of traffic they had come through. So it seemed like the community really bought in well to that, and kept us as safe as they could on the bike. But yeah, I mean, the bike overall, it wasn't anything too crazy other than just the legs felt a lot heavier than what I was expecting them to based off the training that I did with them. So,
yeah. I know I heard about a wreck as well out on the bike that Brandon told me. He said that it happened like right in front of him. He said it. And I mean, I've experienced this just outside. I mean, just in general, like if you see somebody hurt somewhere and there's already 5 to 10 people around him, is like, do I go also to help? Do I stop? And, he was like, by the time I got up there were already volunteers and people off their bikes doing stuff. He was like, I feel like at that point it would have been wasteful for me to just stand there.
Yeah.
But I guess, and I didn't, it's something you don't always consider or think about, but he had said when people's water bottles come off their bikes, they're like torpedoes.
Oh, there were water bottles everywhere too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it was because River Road was pretty rough riding out. So you hit a lot of pretty rough spots on the road. And then there's quite a few little bridges we went over, and every bridge you had, there's probably 10 or 20 water bottles just lingering around. So, I mean, you're dodging them. Luckily, I had biked quite a bit before, so you understand like bike etiquette, point out different issues that are coming up for the riders behind you, and try to help point out different things they can avoid to avoid a wreck too. But there was a ton of bottles out on the route.
Yeah, and that's I guess whoever it was a woman, and a bike hit her, or a bottle hit her front tire of her bike and took it out, and said she went over the bars. Of course, your feet are clipped in, so it's like, not that it would have helped if they weren't as fast as you're moving, I'm sure, but went over the bar and thankfully was wearing her helmet, but was scraped up pretty good, and they pulled her from the race because I think her bike's probably banged up too. And that's the thing too, is like the tires on these bikes are thin. Like it's not a bike you get when you're a kid where you have 3 to 4 inch wide tires. Like they're very thin.
Yeah.
And so it's not a lot of stability because, the point is to go fast on them. So yeah, I mean, for you to just have to really you're lucky if you don't blow your tire out and need to change a tube and you don't wreck. I mean, I think you probably consider that a pretty successful bike day when you look at it from a big perspective like that. So yeah, but like I said, I just kind of hung back and tracked Wade as best as I could. And then again, I saw he was coming through, or he completed his bike, and the transition area there I felt was ridiculously long. I don't know if if it just looked way worse than what it actually was, but they come off their bikes on the road, they come in where they went out, just going opposite direction. And so he's off his bike. It says he finished, and then it was about 45 seconds to a minute again before I saw him. And then after that, he had probably another minute and a half run
to just get to
your transition area again, and you have to be off your bike for that.
Yeah.
So
not only that, you're in your bike shoes too. So they make some really nice new bike shoes where they're pretty flat and you clip in, and so it's basically kind of like running shoes that you can wear. So it's not too bad. Mine are pretty old school. It's hard to find size 15 bike shoes. So once I found a pair, I just stuck with them. And so I have clips on the bottom of them. So it's not like you can really run that fast. It's basically like big cleats on the end of your bike shoes. So yeah, I mean, you don't really get to move that fast in that transition. And plus you're running in the grass on the waterfront. So it's not like you can really get much traction on it either. So where I was getting off the bike too, it was pretty congested when I first got off. I felt like there's a lot of people. And then, I mean, the area that was pretty wide, I mean, it wasn't that wide. It was maybe double the distance for me to you right now, maybe 6 feet.
And there's spectators along that. So people were stopping to
talk to people, take pictures of their family. And so it slowed you down a little bit. I mean, it's not like it slowed me down in an immense amount, but there were it bottlenecked a little bit more than what I was expecting when I got off. But one thing before we leave off the bike, there were some pretty cool sights out on the bike. One, there was a relay. It was somebody, his name was Kyle. I can't remember what specific organization they were raising money for, awareness, but he appeared to have cerebral palsy. And so somebody either on their team or maybe it was a family member was pulling him on the swim and the bike and the run. So I got to pass him on the bike about like halfway through, and he was just happy, joyful, full of life. and just thankful to be out on the course. And he was cheering on every single body that was going around him that entire time. So it was neat to see him out on the course, and then also the dedicated individuals that put in the time and effort to train with him to be able to get him to the finish line. That was neat to see. So it just helps keep things in perspective when we're hurting. Like,
could be worse.
I mean, it could be way worse in life, and just be thankful to be out there on the course. That's where, like, halfway through the bike course, like, I knew I probably wasn't going to finish on my time. Like, I was not hitting at all cylinders like I was expecting. I had just gotten off a terrible swim. It would have been easy to fall into a pity party and like get just mad at myself and like just quit basically. But then seeing some of those events, it just put life into perspective really fast for me. And plus I was really excited to finish to see my daughter. So I was really excited to finish for that. But also saw another lady on the bike who was just in a mountain bike, no clips, no fancy shoes, no fancy aero bars, just out there getting it. And I passed her like in LaGrange. So she kicked my butt on the swim then, and then was kicking my butt for the main part of the bike. So it was just neat to see somebody out there. She was probably mid-60s too.
Wow.
And just out there pushing at her hardest to be able to finish, and like not on fancy gear at all. So I think that was pretty neat to see somebody else out there just working with what you have. Just shows that you don't need all the fancy equipment to go out there and compete too. So there's a wide array of body types, age of individuals out there competing, and it's just neat to see all of them out there competing at that event.
Yeah, I'll attest to that too. There were so many people that looked totally different from one another. Some people you could tell like it was way harder than it was for them than it was for other people, and it's all relative to each person. But yeah, I mean, there were so many different types of people, from age, body type, all of that stuff, and so it's like you love going to those events not to watch the elite people who are trying to qualify for Kona and stuff, but you go to see those people, and that's what I was experiencing, what I was feeling. Obviously, I'm there to support you and other people that I knew that were participating, but it's like when you see these other people and you just see that, like when they come through and they see their family and they're like screaming, it's like this, like they could care less how quick they're finishing. They're just glad to be here and they're glad to be finishing. And you can tell those individuals, and it makes it so special. And it's like so many times throughout that day, I'm like, I'm ready to race, do some sort of race again.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, man, it's just like being around that environment is insane. And I really felt it and experienced it, the transition from the bike to the run, because at that point people were like, all right, we're going to suffer just a little bit longer, but I'm through almost 60 miles of the 70.3 that I have to do, And so, that was really special to see that and experience that. But now let's talk about transition, from the bike to the run, what that felt like. And then what's the gear change look like? Because I couldn't really see you a whole lot. I just saw you making a beeline for the porta potty when you're about to come out on the run. So
we're not going to discuss that into too much detail.
So talk about that a little bit. Like what's a transition look like from the bike to the run?
So there's not much gear overall. So for me, you have to go back, you have to re-rack your bike, obviously, and get that in line. For me, I just had like a nutrition belt, which probably shouldn't have taken it. There's no real reason because they had plenty of that out on the course. And then change in from bike shoes into my running shoes, throw on a hat, and just get going. So there's really not much from there. The only thing is I couldn't find my sunglasses, and I think we discussed that on the video the day before. Couldn't find my sunglasses anywhere. I've been looking at the house for a week, but I guess past Wade was looking out for future Wade, and I had stuck my sunglasses in my running shoes so I wouldn't lose them before the Ironman. So
and you almost lost
them.
I
put on my shoes for the race, and I was like, what the heck is in my shoe? Pull them out, and there's my sunglasses. So I was glad I got to wear my sunglasses for the run. But I put that on, had to make a beeline for the porta potty, had taken on a lot of water during those few miles that we'd already completed at that point. So I had to empty the bladder and then get out on the run, because not saying it's above me, but I didn't feel like doing it on myself on the bike. Yeah. So it's kind of gross.
Yeah.
So
water's different, but on the bike.
Water's different, but no, you didn't want to do that. Yeah. So. But no, it should have been quick. If it would have just been shoes, hat, boom, in and out. But then I had to stop at the porta potty. So it took me a little longer. I think it was like 7 or 8 minutes transition. Like still wasn't terrible, but not nearly as fast as what I had planned on doing.
Yeah. And I know I didn't see Wade's text until he was like 3 miles into the run, because pretty much when he first took off on the run, I was with him for the first 2 miles, 2.5 miles. because that's when I got my Lime scooter. I was like, all right, now I'm going to let myself do this. So, yeah, I saw Wade coming out of the bike and looked good, looked fresh. And just from the very little times I've experienced a brick workout going from a bike to a run, I mean, I've never really done more than like 4 to 6 miles off the bike either. And so, like the run coming off the bike, and even then, it's like my longest bike is like 10 to 13 miles probably. And I mean, your legs are just taxed. I mean, they just feel so heavy. And I saw your text about 3 miles in whenever I finally parted ways with you, and I was like, all right, I'll see you at about mile 10 again. And I saw your text where you're like, my legs, like I'm hurting. Or I think you just said I'm hurting, something like that. So what was it like coming off the bike, going in the run? I'm sure there's probably some adrenaline coming out of the transition. So when you kind of settle in and, and I mean, you're running in front of the Yum Center, like it is so
Yeah.
cool coming out of the transition area. But talk about just the run in general and how you were feeling when you first went into it and how it evolved.
Yeah, I would say those first 3 miles were definitely the worst. Just getting out because it was hot. There's no shade at all where you first started. Plus your legs. I mean, there's a reason they call it a brick run. I mean, they were heavy. They just they weren't turning over like I was expecting them to. And I don't know if that was due to the nutrition on the race, the poor sleep days leading up, or just the general illness I was feeling that day of the race.
Sure, it was a combination of all.
I'm sure it was all of them, but my legs, based on the workouts I had done before, usually like quarter mile to half mile in, they started to loosen up and feel good. It lasted up until it was probably like mile 3. And then I started to feel a little bit better where I could pick up the pace a little bit, but still wasn't very fast at all. But it was still, pretty neat coming out of that transition. It was neat for you to say, like, the scenery and everything looked really pretty.
Yeah.
I didn't pay attention to any of that.
Yeah.
Like, I was just trying to get to where I was going. And that's something I probably need to do a better job at these race days, is just slowing down and enjoying the actual process of finishing the race and taking in those sights and sounds. I'm more of a just get from a point to point and then just be done. Like, just take time to just really enjoy the opportunity to be able to race and do something like that, to where you pay to actual suffer like that. Just enjoy it more. But didn't even notice the Yum Center right to my right.
Yeah,
I'm a Cardinals fan, but I didn't even. They've been terrible the last few years, so I wasn't really paying that much attention to it. But you make a left and you run back out basically the route that you biked in, maybe a mile, and then you turn and run past the soccer stadium. So I'd ran that part of the route before, because that's where the Kentucky Derby mini marathon finishes, is right there. So we ran right past where that finish is. And then on the run route, every single mile, they had nutrition aid stations, which was awesome. It was pretty neat. And there's probably 10, 20 volunteers at every single aid station.
You really could have taken nothing then.
You could have got everything it would have been perfectly fine having nothing out on the course.
You just never know how they're going to be.
Yeah. And like where I've been before, they've ran out of stuff. They've ran out of hydration. In the other one, I act like I've done a lot. The other one I did, they ran out of drinks and stuff like that. So then I was like, this one, like, I just want to mitigate any of that risk that I could potentially run into. But it was relatively flat starting out, and up until mile, it was like 3 or 4, you start to get into Cherokee Park, and that's whenever I finally like settled in and felt comfortable where I was. It rained on us for maybe a minute or 2. So it cooled you off. You knew it was going to get hot and humid, but it was going to be hot and humid anyways in Louisville, Kentucky in the middle of August. So we had trained through that all the summer. Like, the humidity didn't bother me. But once you finally got into a groove of the run, for me, I just felt good to finally be back out on the run, even though it was a lot slower than what I was expecting to. My body just wasn't feeling it that day for some reason. And so that was aggravating, but I got to see my family around mile 6. So it was good to see Janae, Eliza, and Owen. My mom and dad came up to watch. Sister and brother-in-law came up to watch. Sister-in-law was there, and my in-laws were there too. So had a good little cheering group for me as I was going across. So it was good to see them at different checkpoints. Janae was moving slower, pushing 2 kids around, so she didn't get to see me at multiple checkpoints. But her sister, avid runner, loves these sorts of events, lives in Louisville, actually, like right past where we ran. She ran like multiple different checkpoints to see me and cheer me on throughout the race. So it was good just to see family and just to see people that were excited to see you just out there moving. They didn't care about my time. They didn't care about any of that stuff. They were just excited to see me and that I didn't drown in the river like they had expected earlier. So, but there were some massive climbs between 5 and 8 So as part of my training, I made sure, and I went and got a 13-mile run in. It was like a month before the race, maybe 6 weeks. I can't remember. It was maybe like mid-July. I don't know if we have that documented or not. It was in Cherokee Park too. So I went up there and ran the course route where I knew I was going to be to make sure nothing caught me by surprise. Like an idiot I am, I ran the route in reverse, which I thought I was going the right way, but I guess I just messed up and went in reverse when I first started out. So all the massive hills I had to climb were great downhills on that training run.
I bet
but
they were.
it was still, I mean, there was a lot of uphills, but all the massive downhills I had ran up on that training run. But it was still good just to get on that course and be familiar with it, and like understanding at mile 8, there's really no hills left, and it's pretty well downhill or flat from there on out. And you felt pretty good coming out of Cherokee Park. But after that, it just opened back up. I mean, it was pretty hot from there to the finish, going to 4th Street Live.
Yeah, the sun was beating down.
But again, I mean, it was great from spectators out on the route cheering everybody on. The volunteers were amazing. Like I said, every single mile, 10 to 20 people at each station.
Yeah, that's
giving
awesome.
out water, hydration, fuel, anything you could think of. They had it there. Ice. I would put ice down in my lower back to try to keep me cool. But it was just great. And that's actually around like mile 9 to 10 is where I met one of the guys that noticed me from the YouTube channel. And he was like, "Hey, you're the Move Well guy." I was like, "Yep, that's me." He was like, "I was shooting for 6:30, but I'm going to be way over 7." I was like, "Well, I was shooting for sub 6 and I'm right here with you, man."
Yeah,
so I'm much better on you. But it was cool to see him there. And then actually like at mile 10, I was running by. I always said thanks to every single police officer that was out on the course, just to thank them for being out there, giving up their Sunday from their families to come out and support crazy people like myself. And I noticed it said Cloverport Police Department. So there's a Cloverport police officer. So my hometown that I grew up in was out on the course. So I actually stopped, talked to him for a minute.
Nice.
Told him thanks. Funny story is he had just pulled my wife over like a month before. So I gave him grief for pulling my wife over, but he let her go with just a warning. So that was nice.
That's funny. I did not know that either.
So it was funny seeing him around mile 10 and then again around it was like close to the finish. So it was around between mile 12 and 13. One of my buddies actually grew up going to high school with that works for the police department in Grayson County.
Okay.
He was on the course. So it was good seeing Chance out on the course too. And just to see some other familiar faces out there too. So it was pretty neat. But
that's awesome. Yeah, I remember. So I caught up with Wade again, like at mile 10. And I just kind of, I went in actually to the gas station, the Valero, like right after mile 10. I went, or like right at the mile 10.
Yeah.
No, not sketchy. I went in there and I was the only person in there pretty much the whole time. And I asked the cashier, I was like, my phone was like 11%. I needed it to get the Lime scooter and to track you. And I had a phone charger, but not like a portable charger, you know? And I was like, "Do you guys have any portable chargers?" And she was like, "Huh?" I was like, like a block or like a box I can plug my phone charger into. She was like, "Oh, no." I was like, "Okay, that's great." So then I needed like water and Gatorade and stuff. And so I got myself some water, Gatorade, and then like a Slim Jim or something. I don't know. I was like, I'm starving too. And so I look over and they have like these little like gambling, like with slot machine type things sitting over there. And it was like just for fun. And I see an extension cord laying on the ground. I was like, I'm about to see if that works. So I walk over and I'm sitting in the gas station for like 35 minutes and the extension cord works. So I'm just sitting there, only person in there with the workers. They never did say anything, but I was like, I need to charge my phone. So got it charged back up to like 4%. And then I get the notification, Wade Weatherholt passed it was like 7.8 mile marker or something like that. So then I go back over. I think I went and found a Lime scooter. Got another. Someone took mine. I let mine sit, and I was like, "Dang it! I trusted it'd be okay for 45 minutes." So I got another one. Went and set at mile 10, and then Wade came through, and then I was with him pretty much until the end of the race. After that, yeah, right. I remember at that point, like the sun was just beating down. I was like, it's not like crazy hot necessarily, but the sun is just putting out so much heat because there's no clouds blocking it.
Yeah.
So then I rode ahead of Wade towards the finish, and I didn't know where the finish was either. So that's why I pretty much after we got towards the closer to Ironman Village where it was, I went ahead of Wade just to kind of scope out and see where I was going to be going. And I think I told you about my camera incident, right? How I dropped my camera. So I got to like one of the last big turns. You like turn left near Joe's Crab Shack, I think, and then you go straight pretty much, and then there's like two small turns to the finish. One turn to the finish. So then I make that turn like left for like one of the last big straight stretches, and I got far enough ahead of the runners because you could access that pretty well as long as you weren't
Yeah.
getting in the way of runners. Nobody said anything. And I got about 30 yards ahead of runners, 40 yards ahead. I was like, okay, so I'm going to go in front of them. And it was a little drop off. And so I had my camera in my left hand and was riding the scooter. And I was like holding on to it, but holding on to the handle too. And I remember like I went slow and then kind of braced, like bunkered down a little bit so that way I wouldn't drop it. And I guess I was like so tensed up that when I went over it slow, like it slipped out of my hand and my camera bounced across the pavement, like 15 feet in front of me. And I was like, are you kidding me? I made it to the very end and I'm not gonna be able to, and it was the one I was using for pictures, my personal camera. And I was like, oh my gosh, by the grace of God, he was looking out for me. I picked it up and there's like a scuff on my 50 millimeter lens. I'm actually using it right now on me. And there's like a small scuff. And then where my flash goes into the top of my camera, there's like a metal slot and it's like a little bit dented in. And I picked it up and like kind of looked at it at first. I was like, oh my gosh, I think I made it out without any injury on it. And then once I got ahead a little bit longer and I had like 5 minutes before I saw you, I really looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I got so lucky. But anyway, I scoped out to where the finish was going to be and I waited up for you. And then I ditched the scooter and then pretty much ran along beside you as much as I could to finish. But well, I saw somebody high five you too. Did you know who that person was? Like right when you're coming to the finish, or do you even remember that?
I don't remember how
Somebody on your right side like high fived you right when you were coming. You could see the Ironman, like the finish, and they may have just been high fiving everybody. But what was it feeling like? Because I mean, obviously you get to probably that mile 10 mark, and you're like, all right, 3 more miles. Like it's gonna stink, but I'm 3/4 of the way through this thing, through the run, and you're 90% done with the whole race. So what did it feel like that last little bit? And then what did it feel like when you turned and you saw the finish line? Because I know it's got to be like such a rewarding and special feeling.
I wish I had something profound to say, but I don't think I really do, man.
You've had a week to think about this, man. Come on.
I've had a week to think about it, and I can't even think of anything good. But no, it was just, I was just happy, honestly, just to be done. One, because we had documented this whole journey. So I had a lot of pressure on myself to go out and perform the race day. Honestly, I was kind of mad coming across the finish line knowing that I didn't make anywhere near the time I wanted to. But then at that point, I mean, I saw my wife and kids, obviously you. I mean, it was fun seeing you the whole time out on the course. So it was fun. But then it just, I think I put it on a LinkedIn post the other day. It just put life in perspective at that point, and my family was just happy for me to finish. No one cared what time I was finishing. Like, obviously I did a little bit, but it just brought a lot of joy back to me at that point, like knowing that I had accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, which was to finish the race safely. And now I get to go back home and just spend some more time with my family, because the training does take a lot of time away from your family. Although I thought I was doing a good job at it, now I see how it did directly impact my family a lot more than what I was expecting it to. I mean, I was getting up every day between 4:30 and 5 trying to get my training in. But then if the baby wakes up at 6:30, or if our daughter wakes up at 6 looking for me, then that puts a strain on my wife. Like having to, like, yes, I got things done early, but there were still a lot of other compounding factors that have played in. So just knowing I was going to be able to go back home, relax, and just be able to spend a lot more time with my family, and not make up for lost time, but just to be able to enjoy the accomplishment I just had, but then be able to go back and just enjoy my family even more, and just be more present as a dad. And that's what I was, I guess, kind of going through my mind at that point, which is probably a weird thing to have go through your mind, but I was just excited to finish, to be at that point.
Yeah. Well, I think, well, one note real quick, some guy, I've seen him commenting on a lot of our videos. Rhino Joe Outdoors is his YouTube handle. He said, good work. I missed my goal of a sub-6 also. It happens. Yep. So shout out to Rhino Joe. Good job on finishing, man. Yeah. I think when you do any race at all, especially one that you're out there for hours and hours and hours. I mean, marathons are hard, half marathons are hard, but when you're out there for like 5-6 hours, when you start getting past that, I mean, I think it becomes such a spiritual experience, and you think about things that you don't go about your normal day-to-day thinking about. Like throughout your training, like, you're like, I'm getting up early and I'm doing this stuff. So you're not going to think about the little things and how maybe things are being impacted at home, and it's so, I mean, almost every race that I've run, like I cry at some point, because I start thinking about, I evaluate myself as a man and as a person. I'm like, gosh, I need to be better at this. I need to be better at this. Or maybe I've been lacking in this area, or this is an area of my life that I really love. I think that's the biggest for me, is like, you have those moments where you're like, God, I love, most of the time for me, it's like, I love my wife and my dog. I haven't ran a race since Lee's been born. So, or not like a big one. I'm like, I love my wife and like, I just cannot wait to be with her again as soon as I cross the finish line. And most of the time that's what it is for me. And I don't know. I think it's like, it's just such a spiritual experience. And I guarantee that's probably what you were experiencing when you crossed that finish line.
Well, it hit me a little bit on the bike too. Like
Mhm.
I almost like full on cried, but like started thinking about like just the finish and all that.
Yeah.
And all the hard work that had gone into it, all the work you had put into it. My wife supported me up to just get to that point. And then just thinking about how quick, like I was looking back at some of the first videos, like just seeing how much my daughter and kid or son had grown up, just even in those 12 weeks that we had documented. And so, I mean, it just sees how fast life goes by and just really just take time to slow down and appreciate the small things. So I still want them to see me go out and put in the work, either from a job at home, projects around the house, right? But to see something through to completion and just see dedication and the hard work that it takes to get there. Like I want to instill that work ethic in them, like my mom and dad did in me. So I still think it's good. Like I'll probably do a few things like this again, but I just don't know what the timing's going to be like again.
Right.
You know, like where I can start to incorporate more of their activities into training and stuff like that too, where it doesn't feel like I'm missing out on as much.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely changes like when you become a parent. I mean, gosh, I didn't realize how much. I mean, I think I was very naive when people told me, like even my mother-in-law, she was like, things are going to change. I'm like, it always made me mad when people would tell me that. But like, it wasn't the areas that they were telling me, honestly, that changed. It was mainly like, you don't, I guess, for lack of better words, like I don't care about training the way that I did before. Like I was doing it before because I wanted to like just, and I still like push myself and like explore my limits. But before it was so focused on that and like me. And now I'm like, I just want to like be healthy, and I want Leah and Emily to like see me do something that's challenging and set a goal and do it. And it makes me a better man. I think it builds your character up a lot more. And that's what I think is so cool by documenting the series is like Owen and Eliza will both be able to go back and like watch it from start to finish and see like the race day too, and see themselves in it. So I think that's going to be really, really special. So I'm so pumped. I'm hoping that, it's been so busy here for us just in general for the company.
No excuse. He needs to work harder.
It should have been done. It should have been done today.
Well, one other thing too, I just had some blood work and biometric work done too.
Oh yeah,
so it's cool to see some of the changes in my body comp and stuff like that too. So I started training around like 242. That was back in March, like late March. Weighed in today at 222. So felt good there. So lost 20 pounds just across training for this race. And then my blood pressure had been trending upward for probably about 2 years now. And my last few readings had probably been pushing 140 plus over 90, which is anybody in the medical community, that's hypertensive. And especially with my family history, that's putting you on some sort of blood pressure medication pretty quickly, especially at my age. But I was like, you know what? I still got weight to lose. I got things I can modify in my diet and just really hone in on. And this race really gave me a purpose to do that, especially having little kids. You definitely want to be in good health and be around for a long time to see them. But my blood pressure, I think my best reading today was like 112 over 70.
It's huge.
Like 72.
Change. Yeah.
So that's massive change just even there. So my weight, my blood pressure, I would love to do another in-body scan to see where I was at, because I did one of those in early March. So the other thing was, I think Kevin's in the other room so he can hear me. When the lady was taking my blood pressure this morning,
Kevin went first.
Kevin went first. He just had to go first like normal. I'm just picking on him. He took his blood pressure and they used a normal adult cuff on him. Like that's pretty normal. That's what I've used my whole life with my small arms. But through this training, she boosted me up to an XL. So I don't know if you can see it in the videos.
It is a pretty good angle. I'm looking.
Kevin's going to come in and say something real quick. He had the child size, and I actually had the what is that? The adolescent size. So it was not as big of an ego boost as what you're
looking from behind the camera here or the screen here. Arms are feeling the sleeves pretty good on here. So
this is an extra small. I just got it for today's video, but no, but overall, like my body, like another thing I was just appreciative looking back. Like it's been since 2018 since I like stuck to a program and trained for a full race. before I've done little intersperse things here and there to be able to train. Even my last Ironman I did in 22, I guess, back in May of 22. The training for it was pretty lackluster, especially that last month and a half. But this is the first one, like I've stuck through training from beginning to end and I didn't get injured. And like overall, my body now feels pretty recovered a week after, to be able to start to ramp up some mileage. I've already done a couple strength training sessions. I've done a small run yesterday of 2 miles, pushing my son in the jogging stroller. And then I did an elliptical workout for like 45 minutes last week just to try to get my legs to turn over. I think it was on Tuesday. But overall, my body feels really good, which I think, even though I felt terrible race day, I think that shows like the culmination of all the training I've done over the last 16 weeks, that my body's probably in the best shape it's been in a long time. And hopefully I'll be able to continue to recover well, because here in a couple, 4 weeks, I have the Hot Rod Ultra Marathon that I'm running here that we put on here at Move Well. So I'm excited for that event again and put myself through a little bit of torture again. But overall, body, just the composition, the biometrics, everything, like it was pretty neat to see. And if that's the only thing that I get out of this and I miss my time and all that, man, that pays off a lot more in the long run, just for my health and just generally, hopefully be able to stick around longer for my kids here in this life. So I consider that the biggest win that I've had so far, just learning from today.
Yeah, that was huge, man. That was a nice little surprise before we started recording too.
Yep.
But yeah, man, it was amazing. And I was telling Wade, like by the end of it, I was like, I felt so dialed in on the logistics, where I needed to go, when to expect you, how it looked. I'm like, man, I love stuff like that. And I'm grateful to be in a position here where we can create those things with a small team we have. We have a small team, and we're doing so much other stuff, but then we care enough about our health. That's where it all stems from. It's like wanting to do hard things and be the best version of ourselves that we can be. So do we get to do these things and document it and share it with people? It's so powerful. I think that, and then seeing like the direct correlation of the build that you did and the training block you had, and how it's impacted your health in a positive way. And I mean, you probably say it's pretty closest to fittest you've ever been, I would think, right?
Pretty close.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, it was awesome. And you mentioned the Hot Rod Ultra. I have this sitting here because I wanted to do a little plug. So we are officially, like Wade said, less than a month out. And this came in the mail yesterday. Barbell Apparel is hooking up every single runner for the Hot Rod Ultra. If you're watching on the stream, you can see it. But if you're listening, every single runner is getting a shirt from Barbell Apparel. They were gracious enough to send some shirts, and they're sending some other stuff too. So we've got the barbell on the front chest here. You got the Hot Rod Ultra logo on the sleeve, and then you got Move Well. You can kind of see it on the other sleeve. So all the runners are getting hooked up with this, and we're under a month out. Wade's timed it out perfect with his Ironman. Now he's going to do the Hot Rod Ultra, the 24-hour event again. So I'm excited for everyone come to do that. I'm excited for you to put your newfound fitness to the test again.
Woo.
Yeah, man, it's just gonna be so much fun. It was an awesome weekend. I'm proud of you. I'm glad we got to go. And it's always crazy to look back and be like, it's been 16 weeks already, or 15 weeks since we started this. So yeah, I'm excited to get working on the race day vlog, and hopefully have it out in the next, completely done and out in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to try to dedicate some time to that next week, some heavy time this week and next. So any last words you want to leave us with?
Switch it over, man. Yeah, we got a few more. So
Let's see what you got.
One of two things. Really appreciate Logan. I haven't told him through all this process. Man, he's made me look cool on the videos, whereas I'm not very cool at all. So he's documented it well, especially just from a work perspective too. I mean, we're using this to try to engage more people, to show them, hey, we're ordinary people that are just trying to commit to do some difficult things through life, because eventually through life, we're going to eventually encounter some difficult occurrences, right? So hopefully we're a little bit better ready for the challenge whenever those instances do come along. But I appreciate Logan just documenting this whole journey. I'd be sending him videos Saturday morning, Sunday mornings. He'd be responding to me, thumbs up, all that stuff. And I told him, I promise I did not lie on any of those videos that I sent him. All those were real videos, real workouts that I did. And I promise to the viewers too, I did not do that. So just want to get that disclaimer out there.
You didn't just step outside to be like, oh man, that was a good run.
Yeah, throw some water on me.
Yeah, go right back inside.
My wife would call me out on that real quick. So, but the other thing was another big takeaway from race day was, I'd mentioned my parents being able to come up and watch too. And it was neat getting to have them at that. I think the biggest endurance event they had ever seen was a 5K I put on back in my hometown. And then they've gone and watched my brother and sister when they ran cross country in high school. So like that's the extent of like the exposure they've had to like an endurance event, right? And it was all high school kids. And that's where I feel like a lot of people get through high school and then they don't really ever explore their fitness again the rest of their life to see what their body's capable of. So my dad made multiple comments. Damn, Wade, that person's older than me out there running. I'm like, yeah, Dad, like you could still do this. Like if you put in the time and effort, or somebody like that that's maintained their fitness, like it's pretty neat to see what your body's capable of. But I think it was neat for them to see like people older than them or people that look way more out of shape than them, like still just getting after it. And my mom and dad are great at it too. I mean, they've both quit smoking 2 years ago, which is huge for them. I mean, they had smoked for 40 plus years. So I know that takes just as much mental strength as it does, or probably more than somebody to do an Ironman at their age. But then they still get up and go walk every morning too. So like that's their Ironman they do every day. And I hope they realize that too. You don't have to be out here doing Ironmans just to be saying you've made it in terms of fitness. But it was neat for me just to have them there to experience the event, to see individuals their age on the course, heavier set individuals pushing through, just trying to be the best version of themselves. And that's what we preach every day. So even though my dad did make fun of them, some of the older people passing me, you know, I mean, and that was just part of it. But overall, I was just glad to be able to share that race day with them. And it was just a great event overall, even though it didn't go the way I wanted. I was just glad to finish, and it's been a great week at home. My wife and I had a marriage course we went to over the weekend, so it's nice to go ahead and make marriage a priority again. Hopefully I didn't let it slip too much, but just excited to spend more time with my family and my wife and my kids, and just get back to enjoying life. And honestly, getting back to work quite a bit with what we got going on. Like we're moving into a busy season with Move Well, and it's I wasn't expecting it to, but naturally when you're training that much and trying to document it all for work, it naturally does take back a little bit from your work too. So I'm excited to dig in a little bit more and be able to dedicate a little bit more of my time to work as well. But nothing really profound, but those two things. Shout out to Logan, really appreciated him. And then also wanted to share some of my parents' experience from watching the race. And they were really concerned at the end when I didn't want to talk to them for like 10 minutes. Like, just give me a minute to decompress. I feel fine. No, I don't want water. Just let me sit here and just calm down for a second.
Yeah.
They didn't want to hear that. They're just like me. They're fixers. They want to fix whatever situation's going on. But it was fun to be able to share it with my family members.
Yeah, it was, man. They were super supportive, and they were like right there at the finish as soon as you came across. And I know your daughter was pumped to see you. She saw you right when you crossed the finish line, and then you had to walk out of the the finish line area to get out to the public, and she started crying, and she thought you were leaving again. I'm like, he's done. He's done. Give him a minute. So, but yeah, your family was definitely concerned that you were hurt. Is this normal after all this? Are people usually like this? And then we're walking back, and then there's some lady in a wheelchair who had just ran. I'm like, he could be that bad. So
it's like, it's not as bad as what you think it could be.
Yeah. So I mean, everybody's body just reacts different to that stuff. And what's hard to somebody is relative to them only. So like the point of your parents walking and quitting smoking, like my dad, he's quit and started again multiple times. He's quit for like years, like almost 2 years, and started again. I mean, it's hard to shake stuff like that. And I think as you get older, like that obviously changes. But I think that's why it's important to, it goes back to the old cliche, like what stays in motion stays in motion, or, if you don't stop, then it stays in motion. So like trying to continue those habits.
Did you struggle in physics class?
Yeah, I did struggle. What is it?
An object that motion stays in motion.
An object in motion stays in motion. There it is.
Unless acted upon with an outside force.
I don't know if Hancock County had physics, Wade.
I didn't in Brett County either, but I read books. No, I did not. I think I learned that in college. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I definitely didn't take physics in college, but yeah, thank God I don't have to use those skills here. Any physics classes. But yeah, so I think it's important to like remember that. And like if you want to be able to do those things as you get older, like you need to keep your body moving and keep doing those things. So that's why I think, especially becoming a parent, when I became a parent, I'm like, I want to make sure I don't completely let up off the gas on this stuff, because I mean, I can already see now how much harder it is to get back into running longer distances when I took off for almost a year from like long effort. So anyway, I think that was a good weekend, or good reminder last weekend of that stuff. So it's been fun documenting the stuff, and I'm excited to close it out, the road to Ironman. So thanks for jumping on today, and thanks
for having me.
thanks for watching. If you guys are watching, leave a comment on here if you guys watched. If you kept up with the series, there's a playlist on our channel that documents all the videos, and I'll put the race day finale vlog in there as well if you want to go back and watch it all. But yeah, let us know what you think, and if you're thinking about signing up for a race, that's your sign to do it. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.